good. So this one is really good. Okay, thank you for being here. It's a full house. First big room panel for Trek Track. Thank you for all of you being here. For those of you who don't know, my name is Garrett Wang. I played Ensign Harry Kim on Star Trek Voyager, but I've been the Trek Track director for the last 13, 14 years, so I'm also volunteering as a Trek guy. Thank you. All right, so without further ado, let's bring out these awesome peeps right now. And let us start, how about with ladies first. Jess Buch, please. Jess Buch. Peck. Yeah. And last but not least, how about Captain Pike, Anson Mount? You know, people have often said Voyager's a good-looking crew, but talk about good-looking, oh my gosh. Look at these folks. They melt your eyes when you look at them. Okay. All right, we have questions. Do we have microphones set up for people ready to grab questions? Yeah, okay. Let me just first start out by the first question, which is, I'm just curious about what your knowledge or how it was before you got cast in terms of your relationship with Star Trek, if you were fans, if you knew anything about it, and then what was it like once you got cast on Trek? Jess?
Yeah, sure. So, I was aware of Trek growing up, but the extent of its cultural impact and scope, I had no idea. And then when I started to go through the casting process, so many Trekkies started to come out of the woodwork, like in my family, in my friendship group. They just like took off their masks. Finally, we can be open with you. And it was so interesting. And the thing I noticed the most about the Trek community is that like your whole body lights up with when you talk about it, and it's really special. You can see that it means so much to people. And after being cast, obviously I received like a really in-depth education about not only the show and the world of it, but the fan base and where it fits culturally, contextually, and just I'm just in love with it. It's just so special, and I feel really privileged to be a part of that creatively. So it's been epic.
Yeah, it is true. It is epic, that's for sure. Well put, thank you. Ethan, I'm going to ask you, and next. Go ahead.
Yeah, so of course I was aware of Trek. I myself wasn't a Trekkie before getting cast, but I was a huge science fiction fan. I really loved the Kelvin Timeline films, and obviously had to get very educated once I learned what role I had just booked, because I didn't know what I was reading for at the beginning of the process, and was just totally elated, which was then followed by a sense of dread of how am I going to do this? How am I going to wear these ears and all that? But yeah, I mean, I'm just so incredibly grateful to be a part of this world and this family, as it's called. And the stories we tell are really important, I think, and I'm really proud to be a part of the telling of them. So thanks for having me.
Before I begin, would you please tell your audition story?
Oh yeah. So I'll give the onboard, the very quick onboarding, which is that I got some disguised scenes, and I was reading for Tom the Andorian, and I went and did a couple of auditions, and they were going well, and I got a final callback, what turned out to be a final callback, and from those scenes I could discern which character it was, and I called my dad that night, and I was like, "This is for Spock." He was like, "Are you kidding me?" And I was like, "Yeah, I can't believe it." And he's like, "My son's gonna be Spock." I was really like wonderful first kind of, because I'm still sort of so inside of it, it's kind of difficult to have perspective on it even now. So I went into this final audition and was like blacked out because I was so nervous. And that night I'm having sushi with my buddy and I'm like, dude, it went really well, it's for Star Trek, I can't say which role. And I got a call, and it's from the casting director, and she says, we need you to come back in tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, why? And the camera didn't record any sound from my audition. And I was like, are you joking? Because I thought it was maybe a joke. It wasn't. I had to go on the next day and she showed me the tape and it was like, you know, like couldn't hear anything. And so after this like incredibly scary and difficult audition, I had to go do it again. I kind of still suspect that they just wanted to make sure I could do it again. And just like erase the sound, but I'll never know.
Well, that's a story.
Yeah.
Anson, yes, the original question.
I was definitely a Trekkie growing up. The original series started in syndication on our local UHF channel when I was about 7 or 8. And my mother made me start watching it with her, and I thought it sounded like a stupid idea for a TV show. And I was quickly hooked. And so, every Sunday night, 6 o'clock, I still remember the time slot. And so I met with Jennifer McNamara back, who was the head of development at CBS All Access. You remember that? Yeah. And before they ever did Discovery, and she let me in on what they were planning, and I was like, oh my god, that. And after the meeting, I called my reps from my car and said, get me on that show. And they hired Jason. Thank God. And it's every day I'm on set, there is a moment where it's just completely surreal that I am on the Enterprise.
That's awesome. It's really interesting because Jess, we first see her on Strange New Worlds, but you two we see on Discovery. And clearly the hair and makeup department is different on Discovery. Because Spock on Discovery has some crazy sideburns that do this, I don't know what it is, it just comes in like that. And then all of a sudden, Strange New Worlds, it's gone. And then Pike has 2-inch hair on Discovery. And Strange New Worlds, it becomes 6-inch hair. So, gentlemen, you care to talk about, whose idea was that? Like, yeah, we're gonna Johnny Bravo that hair. We love it. You see T-shirts, right? There's Pike's Peak. Oh, Pike's Peak. People make shirts about your hair right now.
I walked by a guy last night with a Captain Pike captain's shirt on with Johnny Bravo Captain Pike hair.
You always see that. Okay. So
it actually was long, maybe even longer at the beginning of this Discovery. It's not a contained location at Pinewood Studios where they shoot Discovery, so you have to go from outside to inside quite a bit, and because the wind, was doing all kinds of things with my hair, they had to put so much product in it, and it was such a pain. I finally went to the hair trailer and I said, cut it. We gotta lower this because it's just taking so much time and energy to deal with my hair. And then I'm one of those guys. I hate grooming myself. I hate shopping for myself. I don't care. I just go in and make a trailer and I say, do what you do. And they did what they did.
I'm just imagining there's a captain's salon that's just for you that you go to right next to the ready room, and then you get in, you get spritzed up, and you come out every day on the bridge. So that's why.
Don't wake up like that.
That's Ethan, any comments about hair and sideburns, Discovery to Strange New Worlds?
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess on Discovery my look was so different because we see Spock in sort of a disheveled and psychologically and emotionally damaged place, so I think they really wanted to show that with his look. And so the beard was mine, And I wore wigs in that show, and then in Strange New Worlds we've used my hair, so that, I think that probably accounts for the major delta in the looks, difference in looks.
Yep. Thank you for that information. All right, let's go to questions. I'm sure we have a billion questions out there. Let's go with that side first, I guess. Yes.
So you guys had at least to watch some amazing material, and it seemed like you really got to flex your chops, and I was wondering how that was to approach as an actor.
Sorry, was that prompts? Did you say?
Chops.
Wait, may you please repeat the question? So sorry.
How the material was amazing to watch as the audience, and it really seemed like you got to use a lot of craft and work it out, and I was wondering how that was as an actor.
I still think we're having an issue with Can you pull your mask down just for a second?
Thank you so much.
Question.
How is it to approach the material as an actor from like a craft standpoint?
Oh yeah, I'll go. Thank you for sticking with us on that. While losing our hearing, obviously. It's been it's an incredible workout. Like it's like a big jungle gym, you know, because every episode is a different genre basically. So you'll jump from drama to rom-com to horror to adventure from week to week, which is not something you usually get when you're filming a TV show, I don't think. Not that I have anything to compare it to. Yeah, so I mean that's a huge gift, and the writing on the show is brilliant. We have a lot to work with, so we're able to be really playful with it. I think it's delicious.
Wow, thank you for using that adjective. Delicious.
Do you like how I said it kind of sultry too?
It was. Okay. Gentlemen, if you can chime in or not on this one. All right, let's move to the next question. We're going to be right here. Thank you.
Okay, since this has been the 60-year pilot, you have a lot of material to draw upon. How much of this has been with the legacy characters and what came before? How much is from the showrunners and directors? And how much is from what you are interpreting it and where you're wanting your characters to go and hopefully realizing with what you're bringing?
Great question. Let's start with Ethan. You didn't expect that, did you? You probably said Jess, Anson, Ethan. It's you now. Yeah.
I got you, Garrett. Yeah, I would say that they strike a really great balance between the three sources, right? So one of them being us, the actors. I think they chose us for some inherent qualities in us that they saw. Again, I think most of us read without knowledge of which role we were reading for. And I think that that's really smart because when you're under duress of a production on a TV schedule, it's quite, I don't know if many of you have acted before, but it can be quite challenging if you need to perform in a certain way at an emotional level, in a very precise emotional way. And I think when you cast for inherent qualities, you won't, if you fall back into sort of a habit or a default, you're not too far from the character you're representing. So I think they really write to our strengths as these characters. They also are incredibly knowledgeable Trekkies that are writing for us, that are producing for us. And so they really keep us in line in that way and keep the stories in line. And yeah, there's so much that I, of course, had to study on my way into this, and I still do and pay attention to the things that those that have come before me have done. And I would say that we all really are dedicated to consistency and constancy with the rest of canon, as much as we can be. What about you, Anson?
I believe in doing my research, and I believe in stealing. I think. Look, you know, nobody's ever created an original thing in their life. It's all from seeing what's around us and experience, and taking things we've experienced or seen and building on top of it. But I still, as blatantly as I possibly can. With that said, the majority of the time that I do my research, I'm like, I would never do it that way. Or sometimes I find something little that's nice. So the majority of our research as actors, I think, is just to calm our nerves, make sure that we are aware that we're prepared, we're ready to go. We've made a lot of creative decisions going in. TV's different because it's so long form and nobody knows where it's going, so you gotta be very careful about the footprints that you put down. And then eventually, in stride, you can start making those footprints deeper and deeper as the character becomes more yours. And the relationship between the writers and the actors changes as well, because you sort of start, at a certain point, start to become the authority on the character to a degree. And, you know, so obviously I watched everything that Jeff Hunter did with the role, but for me, it was a Pike who was in a different chapter of his life, so I didn't really feel too beholden to that. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Okay, Jess, you had to do an American accent instead of your Aussie accent, first off. So what research did you do? What type of study?
For the accent?
For the role.
For the role? Yeah, I mean, I watched the Major's performance, and that gave me like an essence, you know. I think there was a lot of room to make decisions beyond that, because famously, like, she wasn't very happy with the amount of substance with the role, you know. There was like a lot more that she wanted to do.
Yes. You've gotten to do that.
And
so,
I feel super lucky that I've gotten to do that. And it's been, I remember being really surprised in the like delightfully surprised in the time preparing for season 1, talking to Akiva and Henry. I was like, so, like, let's sit down, give me dot points, like, what do you want for her, like, who is she, let's go. And they were like, who do you want her to be?
Wow.
And I was like, what?
Almost a blank canvas in a way.
Almost, you know, like, obviously I wanted to honor what Major had set down before, as much as I could, but also, like, do service to things that women weren't really allowed to do when the show was first written, or weren't given space to do on television. Yeah, you know, like, so it was a conversation which I felt, it was just like, wow, I get to play with all the things? Like, wait, I can have all the toys? Sure. So it was cool. And like you mentioned, Anson, it's been an ongoing conversation, you know, like they're responding to how we perform and watching, finding our strengths to the writing that they give us initially and then kind of following us as well. So it's a constant conversation as the characters are more fleshed out and become more deepened.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then going back to the accent, did you have a dialogue coach or you did it on your own?
Well, when you're in Australia, if you want to work as an actor, you kind of have to have a perfect American accent.
Oh.
Otherwise, your career's dead before it starts.
Oh.
But I did get a dialogue coach as well, just to make sure that that it was perfect, because as I'm sure some of you know, like, accent isn't only just the way it sounds, it's the way that you hold your body, it's the rhythm at which you move with your body, it's attitudes and cultural patterns as well. So there's a lot more to it, which is really fun as a performer to learn and to embody. So yeah, both.
Awesome. You know what I found real interesting? When you speak with your normal accent, your Aussie accent, when you referred to Anson, it came out as Ensign. I was like, me? What? All right, next question. Or everything's over here now?
Well, over here.
Oh, you're over there? Okay, yes. Oh,
Sorry.
way over there then. Far. Yes.
Hi, my name is Eternal Zan, and my question is for Anson. I was wondering, when you were on Hell on Wheels, you had a co-star who had worked on Next Generation, and I was wondering if you learned anything from him about Star Trek on Hell on Wheels and how that compared to your experience now.
I'm sorry, you mean with Colm?
Did the topic of him working on Star Trek ever come up on Hell on Wheels? And
got it.
so, like, did you maybe have an expectation of what it would be like to work on Star Trek from talking to him, and then
I mean, we talked about it. We talked about it a good bit because I was a fan, and so I was asking a lot of nerdy questions, but which Colm has no time for. We also had Marvin Rush, who, our DP on Hell on Wheels, was camera operator on Next Generation, and then camera op on Deep Space Nine, and then became DP and directed a few episodes. So we had a lot of conversations about it. But the only thing that's specific that I remember Colm telling me about Star Trek is he was telling me it ran for so long that, you know, their trailers were literal trailers on the Paramount lot, and when they went to move the trailers off the lot, they had to reinflate the tires.
That's true. Yeah. I love how you're right. Colm doesn't. Yeah, he's.
I have a funny story to share with you on your last joke.
And also, Marvin Rush was our full-time DP on Voyager as well. If you
was he?
Yes,
Oh, wow.
he was there from day one to the very end.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
So no, I had the wonderful opportunity to go and participate in a sweat lodge in Calgary when I was doing Hell on Wheels, and the gentleman who ran it had us into his home afterwards for food with his family, and he had a son named Anson. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. How'd you come up with Anson? And he said, well, I was a big Star Trek fan, and there was a character on there I loved named Anson Riker. And I didn't have the heart to tell him. I guess now he's gonna find out.
Which is not unlike a young lady who came up to my table, and she said, she's in her 20s, and she said, I've been watching Voyager since I was 7, and I'm really sorry to say this, and I'm very embarrassed, but the entire time, I didn't realize that Ensign was a rank, and I thought your name was Handsome Kim. All right. Next question from this side, please.
This is for Anson. Just curious, as a Trekkie, what was your reaction when you found out you got to do the voiceover at the beginning of the episodes?
I was like, it was my number one question I had for Akiva when we started shooting. And he was, yes, we're gonna do it. And I was like, yes! You know, and then you found, but you know, like, we didn't record it until the end of the season. The whole season, like, you know, you find yourself in your head all the time going, okay, space. No, space. Space.
That would have been a whole different intro. Okay.
And then I was, so we recorded a temp track for it on the set. Everybody was going home, so I didn't have time to worry about it. I just had to do it. And then because that was just a temp track, we wanted to do it for real, and we were still recording under COVID, excuse me. So a couple of months after we finished shooting, they were sent for a while. They were sending us these self-contained boxes that were your recording studio, and there was the technical team that made the box from New York, and you'd be on the line with them and with LA post-production. And I have a sound booth in my basement, so I had this thing in my basement we were going over. We were really taking our time with the speech, doing it a bunch of different times, taking one sentence, putting it here, another sentence, putting it there, and then, okay, let's go back, let's do the rest of the ADR, and then we'll come back at the end and listen to it, see what we get, and just really wanted to get it right. And we're in the middle of that, and there's a pause while they're stitching some things together, and I said, guys, can we just take a moment here, and this is in October of last year, and I said, can we just take a moment to realize we're going to remember this moment for the rest of our lives? How cool is it that we are getting to do this right now? And everybody was like, yeah, this is awesome. And then there was another pause, and I thought, and I remembered, and I realized, and I said, you know, of course, Shatner's in orbit right now. So let's not try to outdo Shatner, because he can't. And then I ran into Bill and I told him that story, and he was looking at me with that faraway look he gets sometimes. And I could tell towards the end of the story he was not listening to me. And I get to the punchline, and of course, he doesn't laugh. And he says, you know, I never got it. said, I don't think I ever got it. I don't think I got it right. And I said, what are you talking about? You're the gold standard. And he said, no, I could never really figure out what it was. Was it a captain's log? Was it something, a self-monologue? Was it like a dream? I was like, well, don't worry about it.
That was your conversation with Chef. Was it a dream? Was it interpretive dance? What was it? Next question.
Yeah, hi, my name is Kevin Mathis. My question is for each of you. Can you please describe your favorite scene or episode that you've performed in as your character?
Oh, Jess, favorite scene?
Sure, I'm not going to overthink that one too much.
Yeah,
There's one that one day that I remember that felt really poignant, but also strange and also special. It was the day that we were filming Hannah's memorial, and all of us were there, which is rare, and some of the guest cast who are also rarely there with all of us, and the director, Chris Byrne, brought a record player and was between takes, like playing, I can't remember what it was playing, but it was something like Frank Sinatra or something, between takes. And it was just this it was just beautiful. The days that we're all on set together are special already because they're rare and we all get along really well. And our characters were experiencing something extremely heartfelt. They were also experiencing being all together and listening to a beautiful record player, and we were kind of getting towards the end of the season as well, and we kind of felt like we'd made something really special, and it was really lovely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, Ethan.
I guess I could say, it's really hard to choose because the season sort of stretches out and feels so vast and long. And there are a lot of great moments that happen, but probably in Spock Amok, when Spock fights his human self, which was me, Ethan, and that was pretty crazy to do. That was, I think, my very last day that I had filmed for season one of them. And it was a big long day where I worked with 2 stunt doubles, one dressed as human Spock and one dressed as Hyper Vulcan Spock, and then there was me, and we played each side. I filmed the first half of it as human Spock, and then was turned over into very Vulcan Spock, and that was very, very memorable, and I'll never forget that. That was cool.
And they only gave you the choreography like the day beforehand or something, didn't they?
I got it like 3 or 4 days before. Yeah, but we have a great stunt team, and they ran me through it. And,
Anson.
Her favorite scenes are the scenes with everybody. His favorite scenes are the scenes with himself.
Ow.
That's what I got. I have a few. I really love the scene that we did.
When were you talking to yourself?
There was one of those, wasn't it? But I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking about the scene that we did in that episode. I give you the lowdown on what's going on, and you have to figure out if I'm insane or not.
Oh yeah,
that was a nice scene. And I really liked the scene with Chrissy in the first episode, where she's withheld information from me, and she thinks she comes to me at the space station at the end of the episode, and she thinks she's going to be fired, and I end up offering her a commission. That scene, because that scene didn't exist in the draft of the script. And halfway through shooting, Akiva, who was directing that episode, said to me, he said, I'm thinking about adding an episode. What do you think about this? And he sort of gave me the general idea, and I was like, sure. I'm not really getting what he was getting at, what was missing from the episode. And then even when we shot it, I enjoyed doing the scene. I was like, I think that's going to be a nice scene. But then when I saw it, I was like, oh, I get it. Okay, just just the intelligence of Akiva popping up and noticing and realizing that something fundamental was missing in that episode, and it was so true for both of our characters in that relationship. But then I can't leave out my birthday this year when I just wanted to go home and see my wife and child. And I had, I think, just one scene that day, and we get right at the end of it, and I'm about to leave, and they go, hold up, the first AD says, no, I'm getting a message from sound, there was a sound technical on that one, we have to do it again. I was like, there's one mic, like, what is it, I'm standing in one place, one microphone, why are we here? And I'm in front of my door, right, and that's how the scene begins, is somebody comes in. And the door, and they roll camera, and the door opens up, and there's my wife and my baby daughter with balloons. Yeah,
That was awesome. I love that.
Happy birthday for it.
It sounds like it. Yeah, we didn't have that stuff on Voyager, so you guys are lucky. I'm gonna say my favorite, I'm not saying my favorite scene, but my favorite line from the pilot episode was when you guys beam down on the alien planet, and Anson says, "Why is it always an alley?" Like that. Okay, this question over here, please.
Hi, I'm a big fan of the show and Star Trek, but I have a question for Anson that's not Trek related, so sorry. I was wondering what it's like being a hearing speaking actor as Black Bolt, not being able to speak during the entire series and having to learn a sign language that was made up just for your character.
That's why I took the role. I like challenges. And it's exactly the kind of thing I knew I would nerd out on. And I remember Chris Fisher, our producing director on our show, it was producing director on that show. It was the first time working together. And the first day I met Chris, he had me into his office. He said, "Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna come up with just like 12 or 13 signs you can just like do in any random order, okay? And we'll think that you know what you're saying." And I said, "No, that is not what we're going to do. You don't know me yet. you don't know I'm not a lazy actor." And so I created my own sign system it turned out to be great because Serinda was playing both my wife and interpreter. She had to know what I was saying as well, so she made me send her my homework at least the night before we were going to shoot, so she could see what I was saying when I was saying it. So it made me really have to be diligent about being prepared myself, because it's a difficult thing. I likened it to learning how to ride a horse and act at the same time, because we have this thought-mouth connection that is very natural to us, but moving that connection from your thought to your hands is a big leap. I would have to rehearse it like a dance, so that we'd get into the muscle memory of my body, so that I could also act.
Thank you. Let's go over here to this side, please.
And by the way,
yes,
I would like to say thank you to our ASL representative.
Yeah. Thank you.
Professional opinion, doing a good job.
I want to see Star Trek fart. Thank you. We'll go over here now. Ethan's happy. He's like, I know how to do that now. All right, question from this side, please.
So, Jess, I'm a nurse, and I just wanted to say I really appreciated your performance. And the last 3 years have been a hard one for our profession, and I just wondered if you kind of carried any of that into Nurse Chapel.
First of all, thank you for your work. For my very, compared to what you've gone through, my research into nursing and the type of dedication and self-sacrifice that it takes, is unbelievable, and you guys deserve a medal every day. Yeah, look, it's hard not to let it influence the character. I think also because we were, you know, it was all around us on set too. Like, we're very isolated. There's a lot of fear. We couldn't interact with each other a lot. We were all, like, you know, as you can imagine, had our face shields up and had to be away from each other all the time. So COVID was very present on set too. Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I don't really know what else to say, but yes. Yeah.
Thank you for your question. Let's move back over to this side, please.
So this is a question for those of you who've been on multiple Star Trek shows. I was wondering, you guys talked about the differences physically, but were there any things emotionally or character-based, like mentally, that you decided, hey, this might need to be toned down for the other series, or hey, maybe this was missing, could we add that in? Like, were there any particular differences between the two?
Ethan?
I mean, for me, that's probably an easier question to answer than for Anson, because he's really carrying over. I mean, we both are, but for Spock, he's in such a wild state of mind during Discovery that's more or less broken for him by events that occurred at the end of Discovery, and sort of tucked away and compartmentalized for him emotionally and psychologically. But yeah, I mean, the shows themselves are so different because we are an episodic television show. Strange New Worlds and Discovery, of course, is serialized. And that creates a lot of differences for preparation, for state of mind of the character, because every couple of weeks is different. We don't know what's coming, which, as I think we've mentioned before, makes for a very exciting experience as an actor. You play many different genres, keeps you on your toes. And for Discovery, you kind of have an endpoint or an emotional goal that you're striving towards throughout several or more episodes. But I'd be really curious to hear your answer to that.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that's exactly what I would have said. I just think that our show, I like to say that the way I like to think about it is that I'm not the star of this show. The Enterprise is the star of the show. And as long as we can keep our mind, our focus on that, it alleviates us of having to, there's just no time really to belabor either the relationships or the moments, because it moves so fast. And so I don't think that it's anything that really we have to do because it's in the writing, you know? But yeah, there are definitely tonal and technical differences. Yeah.
Great, thank you. It's funny, I'm sitting here looking, oh, I have a name tag. How come they don't? Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go to question over here.
Good morning, everyone. I have a question for all of you. With the writing of season 1 and revisiting themes like Cybok and Balance of Terror, I was wondering from your own research what you guys are potentially looking forward to in future seasons.
Oh, that's a great question.
That's one, definitely.
Yeah, I hope that we get to see Cybok and have exchanges with that character, very much so.
I'm going to think about my answer while you answer.
No, I'm just from what I've on the download experience in season 2. There's just a lot for Chapel. And I don't necessarily think that it's new. It's new for her. I don't think it's related to canon per se, but there's lots in store for Chapel, and I'll be really careful not to spoil anything now that I've said that. So.
That's exciting.
I mean, there's at least one thing that we pitched to the writers during first season that we got to do in second season that we're all very excited about.
The thing.
And then I've pitched a couple of story ideas, and at least one of them I think is on the board. Whether or not they do it, I don't know. I hope they give me story credit. But in terms of, I was actually, before it even started, I was so excited to hear that they wanted to explore the Gorn. Because I was like, oh, of course, yes. That's so great. And then just to go down that path rather than the very well-worn clean-on path.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was great idea.
Yeah, and they really took it above and beyond with the Gorn from what you've seen in TOS in that one suit.
And it's obviously not an easy thing to do.
No.
It's a lot of work to make those things realistic.
So some of that was like practical. I mean, they had puppets and everything in that. Is that right? It wasn't just CGI. So.
Yeah. And I was really worried about the puppets.
Yeah.
But it came out well.
It came out wonderful. Yeah. Okay.
I hope that you all are familiar with the episode Inner Light from. I hope we get an episode like that. That'd be really cool. Whether it's for you or for one of us, I don't know. Yeah.
That's my favorite episode.
It's amazing.
And him.
Nice.
We're doing a great job. You guys are fantastic. This question is for Ethan. You played Spock. Great job. Appreciate that. But you did.
That was such enthusiasm. You played Spock. Great job. Appreciate that. Whatever.
But after a couple of episodes, it was time to move on. You did two other roles. One of them is Ethan Peck playing Gia playing Ethan Peck. Where Spock had done the mind switch with T'Pring.
Yeah.
And then the second one is when you did community theater sorcerer. As I think you were Pollux the sorcerer or something.
Exactly.
Can you tell us about when you read those in the script and then taking us from the beginning to the end? Which of those did you prefer to do, and just how did you do that? How did that go for you?
Great question.
Okay, thanks for that question. Yeah, well, when I read, so chronologically for our production, the Mind Swap episode came first, and I was like 1 month into production on Strange New Worlds, and the character still felt very new to me in a way because the Spock I played on Discovery was quite different. And when I saw that I was still like, I hope I'm not getting fired this week. And when I saw that episode where I had to play Spock, play T'Pring, play Spock, I was terrified. And I was like, I just kind of like, I got together a lot with Gia, and we would read each other's lines for each other, so we could sort of match one another's mannerisms and rhythms. And then you just really try to empathize with this other character. And then to then play, I honestly don't know how to explain what happened or how it happened. You kind of just do what you can in certain moments, and it can be an impulse or a quick idea, and the day happens, and you go home and you say, I hope I still have a job and I'm Spock. But no, I mean, G and I put a lot of work into making that swap very real and as authentic as it can be. Because also we don't have a lot of lead-in time to like prep. Like if I had that kind of thing happen in a movie, I'd hope to have like months for that. And Pollux was a little bit different. I mean, he's sort of a simple man compared to Spock in my opinion. And I thought it was just someone who wants power and is enjoying having it. And Spock is very different from that. So it was much more complex, I would say. So I think keeping Spock together inside of myself is more difficult and requires a lot more focus, and Pollux is just kind of enjoying the moments of power that he has.
Thank you, sir, for that question. Back to this side, please.
My name is Paul Attempt. My question is for Captain Pike. What was it like the first time you were in the chair?
Great question, young man.
Well, the first time I sat in the chair was actually when I came into Toronto a week or two early for Discovery, and when I was doing, we do these things called hair makeup tests and costume tests. And so when you go in and you get in hair and makeup and costume, and they take pictures of you to show the showrunners and producers to see if they want any tweaks before you start. And so I was in there doing that, and before I left, Jody, our art director, asked me if I wanted to look at the sets, and I was like, absolutely. And we got to the bridge, and I was like, wow. And she said, do you want to sit in the chair? And I was like, yeah, sure, yeah. And I sat in the chair, and I was suddenly strangely emotional. I did not expect that, because I had this flashback that I hadn't even thought about this in years, but this flashback to playing Star Trek as my make-believe game as a child with my friends. And we pulled my parents' chairs up to the fireplace was the bridge for some reason. we would argue over who's going to play Kirk and who's going to be Spock, and I realized, wow, I'm still doing this. I don't know if that's sad or good or what, but it was this full circle moment that just really blew me away. And then I got to, obviously I got to sit on the Enterprise chair at the end of that stint on Discovery. And by then I was just like, it was just like, how am I gonna, how's this chair feel different? And like, how am I gonna, I know I'm not playing Kirk, but how am I gonna strut across the bridge and sit in that chair better than Pine did? Because Pine, let's be honest. The end of that first Star Trek Kelvin movie, and he walks across the bridge, and I was like, oh my God, he's studied Shatner.
Yeah. God, that's awesome. Over here now, please.
Yes, this query is for Ethan. Your grandfather Gregory is considered like Hollywood royalty. So I was just curious how you've gone about balancing embracing that, but also trying to forge your own path and name in the business.
Well, that's a great question. Response? That's what I'm supposed to say? Response. Yeah, that's crazy. How about that? It's still kind of surprised. I was on the flight here, and I was scrolling through the movies in the media system on the airplane, and there was Roman Holiday. And I was just like, that's crazy. Like these movies are alive and well, and they still touch people, and it's incredible that he was a part of those, and that I'm somehow a part of him, and now I guess he's a part of me. And yeah, I think it's an amazing privilege, and it can also be sort of a double-edged sword, because he was so magnificent and iconic, and it's difficult to embrace in a way with humility or with authenticity, because it's intimidating and sort of scary, the level to which he got, and now to be acting as well. It's impossible not to compare, but also I feel very separate, and I'm really grateful for the legacy. How could one not be, really? But the sentiment sort of changes over time. I think when I was younger, I wanted to reject it a little bit because I wanted to be seen for me. And I realized, you can't control how you're viewed, and that's totally okay. And I feel really lucky to be a part of that legacy, and to be having my own career. I'm really grateful and happy for it. So it's something that it constantly changes and evolves over time.
Thank you for that question. All right, let's go to this side, please.
Hi, my name is Spaz. My question is for Jess. Between where Nurse Chapel is now and the original series, we know that she's going to go through the trauma of loving and losing Roger Corby, and I was wondering if you considered that in the way you played the character, or if the writers have talked to you about that and where it could be going in the future for Chapel.
Look, it's started to, like, inklings of it have started to come up, but, you know, Chapel as I am now in the story has no idea that's coming, so in regards to, like, working that into the character, definitely not. You know, Chapel in Strange New Worlds is a bit more naive, a bit more bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, a little bit less unscathed, unscathed. So yeah, I'm aware it's coming, but trying not to let it filter into my psyche at all.
Who's this Corby fellow?
Let's go over here to the right side, please. Yes?
So I was wondering what it was like to adjust from working from traditional sets to some of the scenes with the AR wall, and if you guys had any fun with it.
It was effing awesome, and always is. The novelty has not worn off. Every day, if you walk onto a new AR wall set, you're like, ah, so cool, it's ridiculous. Yeah.
There were times on Discovery, and there are still times on the bridge because we don't have that technology on the bridge. That AR wall is so big it has to have its own building. Where, you know, there's so many things sometimes as an actor on Star Trek that you have to imagine are happening around you that by the end of the day, just your brain hurts. So, yeah, it's crazy how much you have to imagine. And then, you know, I mean, you're not even exactly sure what's happening until you see the CG cut in. You're like, oh, that's what we were talking about. So, yeah, it's a real treat to have that load off your shoulders. Just that, beyond the fact that it's technically amazing and the worlds that they build into that environment are stunning. It shifts a lot of that weight to our CG team, who have to start building those things months in advance and coordinate with our practical teams in Toronto to build what's going to be accompanying that on the actual stage itself. And it's not easy. I mean, it's a week to load in a scene, you know, just to get it ready for us to go play on it, which I feel very fortunate for.
Yeah, it's such a powerful experience. I think especially at the end of maybe episode 4 of season 1, where it's Admiral April, Una, Pike, and Spock getting debriefed at a conference table on a starbase. My experience and memory of it is that I was in space. Like, it really feels like that is my memory. And that AR wall can really provide that for you as a performer. As Anson was saying, you only have so much focus to spend on imagining certain aspects of the world that aren't real. And when that's there for you, it's an amazing gift.
Gets really hot though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's just like millions of lights all pointing towards you. And when the camera moves, everything moves, so you kind of get a bit of vertigo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for the question. Thank you for sharing, because we did not have that on Voyager, that's for sure. I wish we did. This side, please.
Hi there, my name is Archie, and I've got a couple of things I want to say real quick. First off, Jess, your introduction on Strange New Worlds was just fantastic and mesmerizing. And then Ethan, you are Spock, and that's... And, you know, Captain, my captain, talk about a commanding performance. But there is something that we should talk about, and that is the chemistry on screen between Nurse Chapel and Spock. There's many kisses faces in Star Trek, but there was one in this season that like floored me and my wife. We both watched it and gasped. And I was like, where are they gonna go from here? They're not gonna go from here.
Thanks.
Do you have a question? Or would you their publicist? I'm not sure.
Yes, would you please talk about getting ready for that scene and when you found out it was gonna happen, like, you know, how did you feel about it?
I mean, I feel like everyone else on set was more jazzed up about it than we were.
That's probably true, yeah.
Yeah, I remember like, because it's all the day's work, we get along really well, we're like, it's comfortable, it's another day in the office really. But like, I remember going to set in the morning, like, here's my scrambled eggs and my coffee, and then Chris was like, you ready for the kiss today? Yeah, like jabbing me in the ribs, I'm like, yeah.
For me, I think from the inside, as an actor, those moments can be sort of like much colder and sort of calculating than it appears from the outside. And you've got to like, you know, kiss in a certain way at a certain angle, and the face is happy. So it's like, it's much more fun to watch, I think, than to do. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I remember like, because Sydney, the director, was like, okay.
Your thoughts, Anson?
Yes, you were saying, the director.
Yeah, like, it was just like, the reality of it is Ethan and I standing there facing each other, and Sydney, the director, being like, okay, so I want like 1, 2, pause, 3, 4. And then we both be like, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and no, 1, yeah. And then like, okay, now gargle, mouthwash, and spit. Like,
So because we were filming during the pandemic, we had to rinse our mouths with like hydrogen peroxide and Listerine before every single visit, which is great because fresh mouths. But it really becomes sort of an an objectified thing. It's not really. Also, with Spock, he's nervous and I don't know.
Gargle, mouthwash, spit, and COVID test, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we've come to that time. What we're going to do for DragonCon photography, we're going to come up here, the 4 of us, and pose. And while you guys are clapping for this wonderful trio of actors from Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, thank you, folks. Thank you so much.